Hello, my friends. Welcome to Fellowship El Camino. I am Armando, and I'm welcoming you to this episode. And it's a subject that is a little bit a touchy subject, I suppose, but it's a subject that God has put in my heart to talk about. And so we're going to talk about it. I have a few videos of about the subject. It's about persecution, what we're talking about today. And it's a difficult and touchy subject. But as I put in the description of this video in YouTube, uh, it's pretty much good versus evil. And evil has always chasing good, and the powerful always uh, controlling the weak. And the meanest people always squashing the meek. So it's always been like that, the strongest always uh, doing what they want over the people who don't have any strength, any power, any economical or political or status, any kind of position or intellect or poor, just poor in general, or people who just are good people. And there is always the powerful, the strongest, the meanest. And so it's like people generally says good versus evil, but it's not really good versus evil because it's not a fight. It's just a fact of life that is happening. And you can turn on the TV nowadays and see that it's actually happening in a lot of parts of the world. And this channel is mainly our focus is on Christianity in the Word of God. And so I'm gonna actually base a lot of my sharing today on that. And we could say, and we can see through history how the people of God, or people who I'm calling the people of God, doesn't mean that everybody who says they're followers of God or followers of Jesus or people of God, that they are actually that, you know. And yet all of us who believe in God and we're trying to live a life like this of followers and believers in God, we still make mistakes, you know. We still get angry sometimes and do things with the, we shouldn't. Like somebody cuts you off when you're driving, you probably get upset, and go and say stuff, even if you don't do any signals with your hands to the person, or you don't cut up into to them and cut them off also, still, I mean, if it crosses your heart or your mind, you already crossing the border, you're already crossing the line. So it's just about that, it happens, but the difference is the if you notice that you're already crossing the line, and if you come back to on the other side of the line and say, well, I'm sorry, and and you really mean it, that's the point I'm trying to make, to that we become better people, that we choose the right side, so to speak, you know and this is not a political talk, or religious either. This is just about what I believe and what a lot of people that I know believe, and just making it's a stand on what I believe and what a lot of people believe around the world. And again, it's about good and evil, And so I'm gonna start with persecution of people. Has always been happening through the history. Like in the Bible, we can read about Joseph, They call him Joseph the Dreamer, or Joseph the young man with the coat of many colors, because he had dreams, and in his dreams he saw his brothers bowing down to him basically, and his mom and dad too, and at least that's the interpretation he gave. And they're like, well, we're not gonna do that, So the brothers got jealous, got mad at him, and he was the youngest. Eventually, they got so mad at him that they sold him into slavery. So in a sense, can you imagine being sold as a slave by your own family? And this happened in back then. The land was called Canaan, which nowadays is Israel, the land of Israel, the country of Israel, and they sold them to a caravan that was going to Egypt. And this caravan, they were merchants, so to speak, because they dealt with every kind of things, from fragrances to spices to people. They sold pretty much anything. And so they sold him for 20, if I remember right, 20 pieces of silver, not even 30, 20. He wasn't even worth 30 pieces of silver like Jesus. He was only worth 20 pieces of silver. So anyways, so he got persecuted that way. He was not a bad kid. He was a kid. And his brothers, many of them, they were adults with kids already. They were fathers and they were parents, and they sold their younger brother into slavery. And what they meant for evil, um, God had a plan for Joseph, and he ended up in the house of this guy named Potiphar, which worked at the court, at the Pharaoh's court, and he put him in charge of his household. And but Potiphar's wife, she just had an eye for Joseph, and she wanted to do the hanky panky with him, and Joseph would not have it, and so she tried to trick him into sleeping with her, and he just run away basically, and she was able to get a hold of Joseph's uh, a part of his clothing, and then when she saw that he got away, she started screaming and called the servants, and I'm sure they had guards since the husband worked for the Pharaoh's court, and they arrested Joseph and threw him into prison. And more persecution. He ended up in prison. A young man again. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was doing his job. Good versus evil, or evil versus good. So they put him in prison. And this Joseph kid, he was a pretty good kid. So he was smart, and uh, he was capable of things. And he basically, the prison chief put him as in charge of the prison, pretty much, bookkeeping and what else, whatever needed to be done, he took care of it. And eventually a couple of people from the court of Pharaoh end up in prison themselves. The cup bearer, I can't even say that, and the baker. Yeah, so they got thrown in prison, and they had dreams. Joseph could, by the by God, he will ask God what the interpretation, and God will give him the meaning of dreams and interpret dreams. So they had dreams, and interpret their dreams, and one of them ended up back at its job, and the other one got killed. So eventually, Pharaoh had a dream, and one of the guys who was thrown in prison remembers, says, "Oh yeah, there's a Hebrew kid. He interprets dreams, and he will know majesty, so to speak, what what this dream means." So they brought Joseph, and he interpreted the dreams. But I'm not going to dwell on all that. The point is that Joseph, being a good kid, a young kid, got persecuted by his brothers first, and then by his employer, and then eventually God helped him, and then he ended up being the second in command in Egypt. So that's the first pretty much persecution we could read in the Bible. Uh, of well, maybe there's another one, but I'm trying to the pinpoint and use the ones that are more like persecution than not, because for example Noah, he got mocked and ridiculed because he was building an ark, because he said there was God told him there was going to be a flood. There was going to be a lot of rain. Apparently, it didn't rain in those days, so he got made fun of and mocked and ridiculed and you name it. And he was building this boat basically for like 100 years, and they never seen rain. So it's like you're crazy, Noah. And but when it starts raining, boom, everybody like, hey, I want to get on that boat. So too late. Anyways, so I got a few of these that I chose, and the first one was Joseph, and then the other one is I gotta put my glasses on. I didn't want to wear my glasses on, but I guess I'm gonna have to wear them. Israel. Oh yeah, Israel in Egypt. After Joseph lived, and then and then the Israelites end up in Egypt. The Pharaoh welcomed them, and they established themselves in the land of Goshen. And then eventually Jacob died, the brothers of Joseph died, Joseph died, and then Israel became a slave in Egypt, and they got that's some sort of a persecution. I mean, being enslaved, that's bad, that's bad business. So they suffer a lot of persecution, the people of Israel, and later on in the Bible, we find out about the Jews in Susa. There's a name of a city in Susa in the book of Esther. We can read about this event, and I actually have it here on my monitor up here. And you can't see it, but I can. And so there was this guy. What was his name? Heman. Yeah, I believe that was his name. And he wanted to. He hated the Jews, and he wanted to kill. He wanted to kill all the Jews. You know. And so he made plans to, since he was the second in command in the kingdom, and told the king. Let me see if I can find his name. Mordecai. Yeah. Anyways, so this guy Heman wanted to kill all the Jews, make talk to the king, and the king says, "Yeah, do whatever you want. If they're bad people, like you said, make a law, and they will get killed in such a time, and such a day, and such a month, and boom." But there was this Mordecai, and he worked at the court also, and he was a Jew. And when he heard they were gonna be killed, he got so sad, and he put what they call back then sackcloth, like they put rough clothing on, and then ashes and dirt on their head, and he walked through the city, like just like crying, and saying, "Oh, God, have mercy on us, don't kill us, help us, And he got really afraid, and he got just, he was just upset, and he tore his clothes and put rough clothing and ashes, and he says, and he went out into the city crying loudly and very sadly. So, and Mordecai went only as far as the king's gate, because this was because no one was allowed to enter that gate dressed in rough clothes. Um, so, anyways, so Mordecai had a niece, Esther, and Esther had entered a beauty contest, so to speak, and she ended up being the queen. And Mordecai had told Esther, "Don't tell anybody like that you are a Jew, or you come from what people you come from, or what country, or what race, or anything. Just don't say anything." So when this guy Haman wanted to kill the Jews, um, and Mordecai told Esther, you know, I'm gonna read it. He says, and then Mordecai gave orders to say to Esther, this is a key, and everybody in the churches always read this part. Just because you live in the king's palace, don't think that out of all the Jews, you alone will escape. You might keep quiet at this time. Then someone else will help and save the Jews. but you and your father's family will all die. And who knows? You may have been chosen queen for just such a time as this. Those are really famous words, that a lot of people know, that I always say, mention in the churches, like, for such a time as this. So Mordecai, the uncle, told this to Esther. So you became queen, and it's probably because for such a time as this, to save your people, to save the Jews, because they were being persecuted by this guy Heman that wanted to kill them. And Heman was a person that came from a country north of Greece. Uh, can't even remember the name right now. I had it in my head and it just went away. So he was bitter against the Jews and wanted to kill him. And so eventually the Jews got saved, and Heman got hang on his own gallows where he had built for hanging Mordecai. He got hanged. So the evil guy ended up being punished the way he wanted to kill a good guy. And so that's a third persecution. First was Joseph, and then Israel and Egypt. Now the Jews in Susa, which is they got taken by first by King Nebuchadnezzar over to Babylon, and then Babylon got conquered by other the Medes and the Persians, and so King Arta, what's his name, or in English, I don't know. Well, King so and so, they were over there in Susa, so and so they survived. And the next one in the Bible who got persecuted was Jeremiah by his own people. Jeremiah was a priest, and Jeremiah is also a prophet. And God will be speaking to Jeremiah, telling the people to repent, to stop doing the evil things that you're doing, stop doing the bad things that you're doing, because if you keep doing these, God is going to punish you. God is going to have the king of Babylon come and conquer you and take you away from your land and destroy your land and destroy the city of Jerusalem and destroy the temple, and people, from the priest to the prophets. They weren't even prophets, some of them, but they said they were prophets. Um, and the king and the people, the servants from the king, they all will look at Jeremiah and say, stop saying this stuff. What are you talking about? And they throw him in jail. I mean, but not your regular jail, with the bed and the toilet and 3 meals a day. No, I mean, they throw this guy into pretty much a muddy hole, a deep muddy hole down there, and pretty much to die. And some servant of the king, an Ethiopian, heard about it and talked to the king and says, "My lord, help me! If we don't pull out Jeremiah out of that hole, he's gonna die." So the king says, "Okay, just go ahead and get him out of there." And the guy went over and pulled him out of there, and but they throw him more than once into prison, into jail, in different types of prisons, and they have a prisoner in the patio of the court, and I mean all the time, just persecuted one guy because he was speaking what God was telling him to tell the people, to repent, basically for telling them, don't be bad, do good things, repent and do good. And because by saying that, he was being persecuted. Isn't that something? The another one also, when the Judeans got taken over to Babylon, the first group of people who got taken over there, and in that group it was the one that is known in the Bible as Daniel, and they rename him over there in Babylon differently. And but Daniel also, being in Babylon, he was a pretty smart dude with his friends, another three Jewish boys, and they pray a lot, they fast, they follow the teachings of God. So they were pretty sharp guys. When King Nebuchadnezzar had some dreams, Nobody could interpret the dreams. No the witch doctors, no the sorcerers, no the soothsayers, nobody. And there was a time when the king says, I don't even remember the dream. Somebody come and tell me, the dream and the interpretation. And they said, nobody ever has said that, to tell you the dream and then interpret the dream. Only the gods can do that, they said. And Daniel heard about it and says, "Oh, go." And he went and talked to the king and says, "Give me some time, and yes, God will give me the dream and the interpretation." And it happened. But a lot of people got jealous. A lot of people didn't like him, so he got persecuted. He got thrown into a den, pretty much a hole down on the ground where they were some lions where they will throw people as punishment, and the lions obviously will kill him and eat him and tear them apart. So Daniel got thrown in there, and but nothing happened to him. God protected him, and his friends, the other three Jewish boys, they also got thrown into a fiery furnace, and because they didn't want to bow down before an idol that the king had built, and they said, no, we're not going to bow down before your idol. We only bow down before God. And the king got mad and says, okay, make that furnace hotter, like 10 times hotter. So it was so hot, the strong men who grabbed these young men to throw them in, as they were getting closer to throw them in, the men throwing them in, they die because it was so hot. They die, burned basically. And then the kids, the young guys who were thrown in, they didn't die. They were fine. They were just walking around. And the king says, "Didn't we throw like how many in there? Three? I see like four. I think." Whatever. However many they throw in, two, one, four, five, six. The king said, "I see one more." And the one that I see, it looks like an angel, like a god, so so he called them out, and then they come out, and they're like, they didn't smell like smoke. The ropes where they have bound them, they weren't bound anymore, and they there was no hair, there was singed. I mean, perfect, just perfect. So they got persecuted for doing good, for doing good things, for trying to help the country, the people, the kingdom, you know, and just because they wanted to believe in God, they wanted to serve this God who created heaven and the earth. Just that's the only reason they were persecuted. And so, okay, so I'm pretty much done with the persecution with the Old Testament, and in the New Testament, of course, Israel in the times of Jesus, uh, Israel was under the control of Rome, and Rome was a pretty strong master. You know, they crucify a lot of people, they kill a lot of people just for different reasons, and so you could see that the Jewish people, they've been persecuted for many, 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 many years, and they've been going through some really rough situations, and so and so after they crucified Jesus, and the disciples start, as we know it, as preaching the gospel of the good news. Um, and the group of believers start to growing up. There were more Christians and more Christians and more Christians in Jerusalem. Eventually there were so many that they're like the religious leaders, the traditional religious leaders, they were like, we got to do something about this, so many times, a few times they throw Peter and John and other apostles in prison and demand them to do not preach in this name, in the name of this guy that they crucified. We didn't crucify him, they said, even that they did. And Peter and the other apostle would say, well, we'd rather obey God than obey man, obey you. So we're doing what God is telling us to do. And um, and then so there was a time when they were killing this young guy named Stephen Stephen, because he was a very powerful kid that will speak what the teachings of Jesus, and people couldn't really like, they thought he was saying stuff against the the, the the church of this place, the religious institution basically. And then they got so mad that they stoned him to death. And then there was this guy named Saul, which later on came to be known as Paul the Apostle. Later on, and when Stephen was being stoned to death, basically stoning means they were throwing rocks at him wherever they landed, on the head, on the face, on the back, on the anywhere in the body, they killed him. And it says that everybody put their clothing, their coats, their whatever, by the feet of this young man named Saul of Tarsus. So people, this Christ, first was the Jews, and now there are still the Jews being persecuted, but now are Jews who believe in Jesus Christ, and they still being persecuted, but this time not by by other countries, by other peoples, but they being persecuted by their own people. Isn't that something? Yep. so um, so after let's see, after the death of Stephen, uh, King Herod, he killed James, the brother of John. The apostles. There was the apostle John, and then the apostle James. So King Herod, he thought, well, I'm gonna basically score points with the religious leaders of Israel. With the high priest and all the other rulers of the religious Jewish institution. So he killed James by a sword, and not him himself. He sent somebody to kill him, and James was the brother of John. And then he also arrested anybody who belonged to the group of believers, or as they called it, the church. And he saw that this was pleasing the Jewish leaders of Israel, so he was pretty happy with that. So more persecution. So and later on, when these guys Saul went to talk to the high priest and the religious leaders of Israel to ask him for letters. He says, "Give me letters so I can go and persecute all these Christians and throw them into jail and bring him. I'm going to go to Syria," he says, "to Damascus, which is in Syria nowadays. Still the same as back then. Damascus and Syria are still in the same place." So he asked for letters in Jerusalem to the religious leaders so he can go over there to another country, another city, and capture all these Christians and bring him chained up to Jerusalem so they can either put him in jail, torture them, kill him, whatever they wanted to do. Whether they would be men, women, even children, old people, young people, didn't matter. He just brought anybody. So on his way to Damascus, he had an apparition. He had a revelation. He said that a bright light from the sky just shone on him, and he fell on the ground, and he heard this voice, and the voice says, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And then he says, "Who are you, Lord?" And he says, "I am Jesus, the one who you are persecuting." And then he says, "What should I do, Lord?" And he says, "Well, enter into the city, and I will show you how much you're gonna have to suffer for my sake, for the love of me." Basically, he was saying. And so Saul, Paul, Apostle Paul, became a believer. The persecutor became a believer, and when he became a believer, and then he's the one who started getting persecuted by the Jewish people, his own people. the high priest and anybody that he used to work for. Now they were persecuting him, and anywhere he went in Turkey, nowadays Turkey, in Greece, in Macedonia. That's where that other guy from Mordecai. He was a Macedonian. Just remember as I said it. Um, Anywhere Paul the apostle went, he was persecuted. He was they stoned him, they beat him, they whip him. I mean, you name it. He suffered the same things he did to many of the Christians. It happened to him, and probably even worse sometimes. So persecution is a fact. Is a fact of life, and is happening still nowadays. We hear in the news about right now the war the Russia is doing against Ukraine. Invading a country who was no being an aggressor to Russia. Russia being a first power and coming against a smaller country with basically less power just because they wanted to have more land and they're invading and Ukraine is defending themselves. Yeah, they are. And so the men basically are going back to defend their own country. But I have a few videos here, and I want to play. First is one in the not with from Nazi Germany, and it's about a couple, Richard and Sabina Wurmberg. They were they are, or I don't know if they're still alive. I don't know. They're probably not. They were persecuted. They were Jews. They weren't believers first, not at all. They didn't even follow their own religion as being Jews, but they became Christians. And as they became Christians in Romania, where they live, they first got fall into the Nazis, and they got persecuted. They got thrown in jail several times. They got taken. I mean, they lost their possessions and stuff. And the first video I'm going to show is about this, the thing about Nazi Germany, and then the second one is about her husband, and they're just basically trailers about movies that they actually you can go watch, online, like in YouTube or on their websites. And the second video is about Richard, her husband, being tortured by when the Nazis lost the war, and then Russia came in, the communists came into Romania and invade Romania and take a hold of Romania, and then he was tortured and persecuted under the communists too. So it didn't matter if it was they actually started being persecuted by the Romanians, the ones who sympathized with the Nazi Germany, and then by the ones who sympathized with the communist Russians. So amazing. So I'm gonna play the first one here, okay?
I want the same things every girl wants. And then a little bit more.
I want you to meet someone.
Oh.
He's every bit as ambitious as you.
Who's this?
She is my niece, Sabina Oster.
My mother is nagging me to get married. She's even picked out a girl.
That sounds very nice for you. And what do you think?
I think my mother should ask me that question.
Your mother's gonna kill me.
The SS came looking for you today.
I'm not hiding.
Maybe you should.
Sind Sie Sabina Wurmberg?
We can get you to the border if we leave now.
You know this is ridiculous.
I'm collecting all the verses in the Bible that tell us not to be afraid. I think I might need to lean on all of them. If we stay, I'll follow the others into prison. It will be the end of our life together.
Whosoever will save his life shall lose it. And whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. We believe this or we don't. I think we have to stay. We have a job to do.
So this is a preview of the movie Sabina, Torture for Christ, I believe it is. And this happened in Romania, and it was under Nazi Germany. And it's a very interesting movie. I watched it recently on TVN. If you get the chance to watch it on TVN, they're playing it right now. You can also access TVN online if you type tvn.com and create an account, username, email, and password. You can use anything as a password from 1 to 9, and it's a good password. And you can watch the movie, and or you can go to their website. I think I have their website here. Let me see. Let me put my glasses. Which one is? No, that's not the one. Yeah, that's the one. If you wanna go watch anything they have there. They're very interesting. Their website. They um, they actually have a magazine nowadays. It's called V, small V O M, is Voice of Martyrs. That's what it means. Voice of Martyrs. And they have articles. I get the magazine every month. It's very interesting. And they show people from Latin America, including my own country, Mexico. I didn't know that people are being persecuted in Mexico for preaching the gospel. In the south states of Chiapas, Oaxaca, and Guerrero, they're killing people in Mexico. And then in Colombia, in the outer areas of Colombia, a lot of Christians have been killed, and especially the ones that are closer to Venezuela. There is still the fighting factions of guerrillas fighting and bombarding each other, shooting each other, and then the Christians are in between. The Christians, they get to they got basically they use them as slaves to dig the holes to bury the fighting factions of the two different groups, and then around the world, like China, India, some other countries in Africa. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of places where people are being persecuted. I'm gonna play this other clip from the husband, which is Richard, and this is when after their country Romania, Nazi Germany lost the war, and then the communists from Russia came in and took over Romania, and then he got tortured. No, this time by the communists, not by the Nazis. That's why.
In August 1944, Soviet Russians took Romania, spoils of the Second World War. The communists declared atheism the official state religion. One man dared to speak out against it.
Scuzați-vă, aș dori să iau cuvântul. Comunismul i-a transformat pe frații noștri în martiri. Ajunge! Iisus a fost batjocorit de cei care îl sprijinuiau.
He would pay a steep price. He would spend 14 years in a communist prison. From the voice of the martyrs comes the dramatic testimony of Pastor Richard Wurmbrand, as told in the international bestseller, Tortured for Christ.
So this couple, the Wombards, Sabina and Richard, they got tortured for believing in Christ. And so they created this organization called VOM, Voice of Martyrs. And this organization is still operating here in the United States in Oklahoma. If you're interested to order a magazine, just go to their website. I have put their information here. If you're interested, and you enter persecution.com, and then you can get their magazine. And online you can access their movies right now. Sabina, the one about his wife in Nazi Germany, and they show Richard too. They show in the movie on TVN, but you can also find them on YouTube. But now this is about in those days in the 1940s. But nowadays I also have uh, a video clip from a TV station from Texas when the war started in with Ukraine and Russia, and it's a church that I will say that we attend because um, we attend online our church, and it's been our church for more than 7 years. So I'm going to show you this clip.
And missionaries from North Texas have helped several hundred refugees escape Ukraine, and their loved ones here know while the work is important, their lives are at risk. More now from Fox 4's David Centendry. He's live in Dallas. David.
Yeah, these missionaries in Ukraine have woken to sounds of explosions and gunshots. Their number one priority is to get refugees out of the country safely, but once that happens, a whole new struggle begins.
This is like the first album that they've done that is actually in Ukrainian, that was written by Ukrainians.
Music producer David Sviantek was born in the U.S. but grew up in Ukraine, the son of Messianic Judaism missionaries.
We're Jews that believe in Jesus.
The 31-year-old moved back to North Texas at age 19. His parents stayed in Ukraine.
Now they're helping refugees.
Now they're helping more than 700 refugees and counting get out of Ukraine to get support.
To me, it's very encouraging to see how many lives my parents are impacting.
We grew up in the former Soviet Union.
Valentin and Tatiana Sviantek came to the U.S. in 1989. They became citizens but moved back to Ukraine in 1996 for mission work. They've lived there ever since. Now, in the midst of war,
You can leave, we can help you.
they're facilitating refugees to multiple countries, like Romania. But there's a new dilemma once refugees arrive.
People calling us right now because they left Ukraine and they said, help us. We don't know where to go, what to do, if we have no money.
So, with the help of North Texas's Gateway Church, its ministry partner, they're getting money and supplies to ones fleeing.
So we're here to save people's lives. Even if it's one life.
That one life could change the whole world.
My parents, they literally just packed one suitcase in their car and left. And that's the story of a lot of people too.
David Sviantek says it's scary to know what his parents are doing 6,000 miles away.
Sometimes this feels like a dream.
But he believes their actions highlight a greater message.
That's one more person that sees God's love through their actions.
The Svianteks say they travel back to North Texas for the holidays each year. We have posted more information on their missionary efforts on our website. That's fox4news.com. You can go check it out. Steve.
So this is a nowadays persecution, and we're talking about the population, the normal population of Ukraine. Not so much necessarily about the fighting forces in either side, but we're talking about the population, which many women are being raped. There's another video that I just didn't want to upload. It's a lot more graphic, and I have another one. There's graphic, but it's about different country in the world. And this program is not for kids, so you're gonna see some graphic things sometimes here. But we're talking about real stuff is happening nowadays in the world. It's happening right now in those countries, in Ukraine, and it happened in Europe in the 1940s. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happens here in the American continent in the next 10 to 20 years, because the world is going in a really bad direction. And people are calling what is good, they're calling it bad, and what is bad, they're calling it good, just like the Bible said. So, it's amazing. So I'm showing these because I feel a burden in my heart. God has put this burden in my heart. He has given me a couple of dreams already in different nights about these. One about Ukraine and one about just in general people who are being persecuted. And not necessarily because they're Christians, but there is a lot of people who are being taken advantage of or persecuted. Like for example, people who get put in slavery because there is business people who do business doing this, slaving people, and there is people who their business is to sell weapons, for example, and there is people who their business is to enslave girls for sexual trade. So this is real. This is we could say, well, I live in my neighborhood, nothing happens here. You know what? It's happening. Believe it or not, it's happening. You just don't know about it, but it's happening. Anywhere where there's a big port, like the port of Seattle or like the port of Tacoma, that we live in this area ourselves, there is some trading going on in there. Believe me, there is something going on. And if you're oblivious to it, and then you got to open up your eyes. You got to inform yourself more. But this is happening. There's this happening around us, and kids disappear all of a sudden from their neighborhoods, from their households. We don't maybe hear it so much around here, but it's real. If you pay attention, I mean, it used to be that you go to the post office or to, I'm trying to remember what other places. Even in Walmart, you see these walls where they have pictures of kids or teenagers that they disappear, and most people will say, "Oh, they just run away." Not necessarily. Some people are actually kidnapped and taken into either slavery or sex trade. You know, and this is a fact. So I'm talking about persecution and being submitted by evil people, not just people who are of faith in Christ or in the Bible or in the God, the creator of heaven and earth. There is people are being persecuted for being Muslims in other countries like Burma. Burma, if you ever heard about the country of Burma, there is Muslims who are being persecuted by guess who? By Buddhists. Yeah, I thought Buddhists they were pacifists myself. In Ireland, there is what is called Christians and Catholics, which both of them are Christians, if you ask me, because both of them believe in Christ. And so Catholics and Christians, they've been fighting for years. Even Billy Graham went to that country one day to share with them to like for peace. The Pope has gone there. So many people have gone there to try to make them get into peace, and they still fighting up to this day, the Catholics and the Christians. So this is happening everywhere. Persecution, okay, of innocent people. That's what I'm talking about today. But yes, I'm making emphasis about persecution of people who believe in Jesus Christ. Yes, I am making an emphasis on that. But there is also the make awareness of people in general who they might not be of any faith. They might be of a different faith, that they are being persecuted, and it's not right, by evil people in general. you know I'm going to show now another video. This one is a little bit more, actually, this one, the next one after this one is going to be maybe more crude, more and this is about Burma, actually. And it's actually a family, an ex, I think he's a special forces guy, and his wife and his kids, little kids, and they went to help people. They have not only helped people in Burma, but they have to help people in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and I don't know where else. And they have a movie, very interesting. You should watch that movie. I'm gonna play the clip on this one.
Well, you have one life, and you might as well go for it, because what are you going to hold on to? I grew up as a missionary kid in Thailand. I remember thinking, I think I'm more of a soldier. I felt God had something else for me to do. I turned to Karen and I said, I'm going to Burma. Will you come with me? Will you marry me?
I felt in my heart, say no and let it go, or you say yes and you get in.
no other plan. Just go. Go to the sound of the guns, go to the sound of need, and trust God to show you how you can be useful.
David Eubank, a former Special Forces captain, has gone on to found a relief group called the Free Burma Rangers.
Helping those fleeing the front lines of war.
His wife and 3 children go with him into the conflict areas.
As we did these relief missions, more and more ethnic people began to join us.
I want to go and help my people as I can. We hope these things will change the world.
We're here on the border of Iraq, and these are all refugees that have been fleeing ISIS.
It's the craziest thing in the world to do. And yet we knew we had to respond.
I felt God's voice. Get on your knees and pray. Get on my knees. I look like a Christian nutcase, man. ISIS just opens up on 3 sides. Bullets are pinging off the Humvee like crazy.
Everything is just right there on the edge. How far is that going to take Dave?
Alive!
What's happening to you is wrong. We're going to help you. Even if we die trying, we're not going to leave you. Because you count. Jesus, help me.
Very touchy subject. This guy just go with his family, wife and kids, and not only to Burma, which nowadays is called Myanmar, and it's in East Asia, and they help people, and because they've been persecuted, again Muslims, and they've been persecuted by the leading groups, which are Buddhist, and I'm not putting down Buddhist or Muslims or any of them. It's just happening, and unfortunately they label them that way. Anyways, people are being persecuted, and this family basically go with their kids and help these people. And he happens to be a ex-military guy, special forces. He has training, and he's not only himself by himself. There's other buddies of him. And the next video that I'm gonna show, I hope it plays. I couldn't download it, but I'm gonna see if I can share the screen here. There's other ex-military helping him, and they train people to survive, basically, not to fight. They're not training them to kill other people. They're training them to survive and to help people. That's what they're doing. And as you could see in this clip they just play, it was in they show also Burma, and they show in the border with Iraq, and there's another country. I want to say it's Afghanistan. And there's people who live in the United States comfortably. They have a house, they have vehicles, they have everything anywhere in the world anybody could wish. And yet they said, I feel the call from God to go help these people. And they go. And they go and help. Persecuted people. So this is real. This is real, people. This is very real. I want to see if I can share this last video. And I'm gonna call it, because I'm gonna go over an hour, and I don't want to go. I don't want to go over an hour. So give me a second. It will just take me a second here. See if I can share this video. And okay, let's see if it plays. Come on, play. Come on, play. It's doing the going around the circle. There it is. I hope it has sound. Oh, man. No sound? Yeah, you're kidding me. Give me some sound. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh, it's just a song anyways. I'm gonna be quiet.
In surrender and despair, before I'm dead now, take the last climb up the mountain, face my fears. The time has come to make a choice. Use my voice for the love of every man. My mind's made up, never again, never again will I turn round. Though they may surround me like lions and crush me on all sides, I may fall, but I will rise. Not by my mind or my power, or by the strength of souls, only through your love, my Lord. All that's lost will be restored. Take courage, sons, for we must go on. Heart of darkness, set them free. But don't lose heart when you see the numbers. There's no measure. Faith we pray. And it's given us to overcome if we run where the Spirit calls us on. The greatest things yet to come. With the dawn, we will rise. Though they may surround us like lions and crush us on all sides, we may fall, but we will rise. Not by my mind nor my power, by the strength of souls, only through your love, my Lord. All that's lost will be restored.
Yeah, this is freeburmarangers.org. You can access their website.
This is such a powerful message, movie. I mean, I'm not saying it just because you're here, but it is my favorite.
Oh, sorry. Something was playing in the background. So, very touching, very, as you can tell, their kids go with them, his wife. There's other other guys, and some of them get killed. The girl who was in the beginning of the video with the hat, the green hat, uh, her head got blown off. I saw this on TDM, believe it or not, Christian radio TV station, and it caught my attention, and plus the dreams that God has been giving me, and it's like, man, this is real persecution. People getting killed and persecuted. This is real. This is real, people. So I wanted to call on your attention to this, persecution, not only of people who believe in Jesus Christ, but general in people, generally speaking, uh, evil people persecuting good people. Not necessarily if they people of faith, just people who are they might think they're weak or they're lesser or they can take over them. There's evil people who do that. They want to control them. They want to own them. They wanted to just do whatever they want with them. So I wanted to just call on our attention on that. That's why I label these persecution. What was it? Persecution around the world now and then, because I started talking about the persecution about with Joseph and Daniel and Israel and the people of Israel and all that. So this is what I wanted to share. I hope it spoke to your heart, and may God bless you. Okay, well, see you next time. I gotta. I'm gonna have to do another show right now, but in Spanish, and I don't know if I'm gonna talk about the same. Sorry, I get a little bit emotional. Thank you. God bless you. Bye bye.